got these. This right here is your injector, and this piece here is called the injector stem, and the fuel is sent into the injector from this line, from the pump. So it goes into the injector fires however much is required, and the excess fuel gets returned back up to here. And there's a series of tubes that run across the top of your engine here, and they allow fuel to flow both back through this line to the pump itself to be re-injected. The excess from that goes out this end, which just runs up to your fuel tank right there in the top. So simple system, and I really like these engines, but I've always thought that this system was kind of, I don't know what the word is, hokey. Like, I feel like they could have done a better job. But at any rate, first part to go on, these large nuts, you slip it down over the stem. Oh, it's a lot to get in here. And then you'll put your rubber grommet, and all this is, I mean, it's not even an O-ring. It's like almost like a piece of rubber tubing, but rubber tubing that's the right size. And when they are new, they are a pain to get over that stem. You just kind of got to work it around. Get that thing in there. So once you've got that on, you're going to want to pull that nut up over that seal, so you've got a little thread sticking out. I don't know if you can see that, but that's how you want that thing to look. Now your next piece that comes in will be your brass T. That T just slides over the top of that stem, and then that brass nut threads onto the bottom of it. Naturally, you've got to kind of loose fit all this because there's a lot of components that have to be installed to get this entire system functioning. Well, I goobered that video up. So saying I wish these camera batteries would last longer. That's something I'm gonna have to work on. I wish I understood them as well as I do some of these old tractors, but I'll get there. All these lower seals are proving to be just as cantankerous as the first one. Maybe that means they'll seal up nice. Alright, our rearmost one, I feel like it's the easiest one to access, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse my original one. The original lower nuts on these weren't aluminum. I actually feel like a steel, so probably be fine to reuse it. If I can get another brass one, I'll probably put it in when I put that new T in, just because I kind of like everything to match if possible. So. Alright, so we get our new bottom ferrules on. Next thing, your return line up to the, ooh, I dropped it. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, I got it. That's why I get extras. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop a new one. If I can hold on to it this time, on the return line that runs back up to the fuel tank. Oh, that bugger is tight. There we go. Well, maybe not quite. That one there would probably seal with no nut. Jeez Louise. All right, there we go. Make sure the nut slips over it. Everything's good there. You really want to make sure your ferrule nuts are in place before you get these pesky seals on. And of course, a new one for the rear here on the line that goes back to the pump. Pesky little devil, you. There we go. Really easy to bend those lines as hard as you got to push on these things. So your crossover tubes will come next. All right, well, learned one thing. Apparently my accent's not very good for this camera, so I'm going to turn the voice control off. I keep shutting myself off mid-sentence, and it's going to be hard to edit and hard for you to understand me. But anyway, what I was getting at, I got these crossover tubes. Usually you're going to want those pre-assembled just to make it a little easier. And I haven't gotten used to videoing myself doing stuff like this, so I'm kind of getting my steps out of sequence, but I guess I'll get used to it. I really wanted to start doing stuff like this to kind of fill a gap. I've looked around on the internet over the years for information on this, well, really tractors and equipment in general, but especially these older Deeres. They're some of my favorite tractors, and I just didn't see a lot of information out there, so I thought, well, maybe there's a little need and a little room for somebody to kind of share some of their experiences with them. And that's a lot of the reason I decided to start doing this. Now, I'm by no means a expert mechanic, or maybe even a competent mechanic, but I have tinkered around with this stuff for a pretty good while, and I feel like I've got a decent, especially on your basics, I got a decent enough understanding of what's going on with them. And you know, maybe somebody out there could use some of my information to help them on their way. So that's all I really want to do, is kind of fill that need. Maybe I can help somebody out down the road, and they can learn something and share it with somebody else and make everything a little better for everybody. And especially as expensive as parts and stuff like that have gotten these days, it's not feasible really to pay somebody else to work on this stuff if it's something that, you know, that the average person can kind of figure out on their own. So if I can help save somebody a little trouble, or maybe a little money, or both, and then I think that's a good thing. And I think that's what we all need. Man, I really wish they had that fourth T in stock. This is going to be kind of aggravating to have all these pretty new fittings and that one ugly one back here at the back. I'm going to have a hard time standing that. But as long as it works, that's the main thing. So, my experience, the best thing to do is kind of loose assemble this thing lengthwise, and because it's easier to get all this together if you've got it put together and you can drop it down on top of your injector stems. If you try to wiggle them around and twist them in there, it's easy to kink these tubes and booger up your fittings and stuff like that. So putting them like this is kind of my preferred route. And there again, I really wish I'd have pulled this loader frame off. I wouldn't have to reach quite so far. So I'll go ahead and get my front line on. and start easing those down on those stems, and everything will kind of line itself up from that point. You get all these guys tucked in. Well, that one's being a booger. Really would have thought Deere could have come up with something a little better than this, but there again, it's been on here for 40 some odd years, so I guess it works. As far as I know, they use these same, these are called pencil style injectors. I guess mostly because of the shape of them. But they use that style of injector up until the, as far as I know, up until the common rail engines. And everything got a lot more expensive then. These things are cheap. You can pick up a whole set of these injectors for, I mean, brand spanking new ones for $200-300. No problem. The common rail injectors probably going to cost you $200-300 a piece, if not more. And these work fine. I mean, may not meet the emission standards of the modern stuff, but it's what I got. It's hard enough to make any money farming, let alone paying for $300-400 injectors. And these been in here for 40 years, so hard to argue with success. Let's see if I can get a little higher up here. That pesky little sucker, there we go. It's good to get everything snug, finger tight, best you can before you go wrenching down on anything. Try to make sure everything's comfortable and fitting well. And this stuff doesn't actually lock in place. All you're doing when you tighten those ferrules up is just kind of squishing that rubber seal. And so you want to make sure everything's in a kind of a happy spot before you go squishing away. Definitely want to make sure you don't have anything cross-threaded. So those are all seem like you're feeling pretty good. This one here kind of worries me. That's that original aluminum one that's kind of on the weaker side. Acts like it wants to cross thread a bit. I believe I've got it. So then you just get everything lined up. You kind of want to just make sure everything's visually straight. Straighter it is, the easier it's going to be to seal up. The small line ferrules are at 9/16. These bottom ones that go on the stem of the injectors, I'm pretty sure those are 11/16. All right, let's try that. Oh, that fits beautiful. So I didn't have a 5/8 here. I did have a 16, which is close enough for this job. So anyway, back to that tool situation. So I think what I'm going to start doing is every couple weeks or so, maybe I'll just pick up a little bit, a duplicate tool of what I've got in the truck. And that way I can start putting my stuff back in the big box here in the shop, because my intention is to do the majority in the shop and just keep enough stuff in the truck to really have an adequate set of tools for service work in the field, around. I've got neighbors and stuff that time to time hire me to fix little odd and end things for them. And we cut hay and stuff in several different places, so I kind of need stuff mobile in that truck to keep all that operation going smooth. So anyway, and I've also got some older tools that are hanging around here that some of that stuff was my dad's. I need to go through it and kind of see what I want to use of it, where, and he had a lot of good stuff. He had a lot of junk too, but junky tool's better than no tool. So maybe I need to get some of that stuff put in here, or at least for the time being, kind of see where my standing is. I don't really want to disturb my truck box too much, just because it's pretty well tuned to what I'm using, just because I've been working out of it for so many years. You know, if I got something in there I'm not really using, I'll take it out and put it back in here. If I got something that I'm using a lot, I'll or something I need, you know, something I've noticed that I don't have that I have a need for, I've tried to pick that up over the years and really make sure I got a nice, well-rounded set of tools in there. It is a long way to town, especially from a couple of our places. There's one of them's about 45 minutes from a parts store or anywhere I could pick up some tools. So definitely worth having stuff on hand as much as possible. Especially the price of fuel the way it is right now. So I hope this video isn't too boring. I'm doing a lot of rambling, but I feel like you kind of get to know somebody when you're talking over a wrench and just kind of muttering on about things, how they feel about things, what their thoughts are. So I'll leave it up to whoever may or may not watch this to tell me if they want me to speed it up and close my mouth, or if they don't mind my rambling, or whatever it may be. Guess it all depends on the person. Seems like some of this videos that you see similar to stuff like this can get a little monotonous, but maybe my poor excuse of a monologue won't be too bad. Boy, that thing back there is just trouble. I hope they get that new fitting in quick. I'm definitely not putting the hood back on this thing until I get that new brass tee to put back here. I do not like this one anymore. That looks just so much nicer too. May not have new stuff, but I'll try to keep the things in good shape. Dad ran this for a lot of years. He did a pretty good job keeping her in shape. She spent most of her life when she wasn't out in the field under a shed, and that helps a lot too. So, all right, I got these all pretty well snugged up. You can see that movement in there that you still got. That's from the way those ferrules snug up on that, and there's really just the rubber holding it, so that's normal. What you don't want is to be able to tug on those and anything move very easy. So where we're at right now, that's all put together. I'm gonna go ahead, reinstall the breather, probably this intake tube, and get my flywheel cover put back on, and probably fire it up, let it run for a minute, see if anything's leaking before I go messing with the lines down on the injector pump itself. Boy, it never fails when you're working on a tractor. Get a big, huge glob of grease on you. All right, so ran the tractor for a few minutes. As you can see there, we got her all the way up to full operating temp. So Everything up here looks pretty good. Lines are nice and dry. Valve cover appears to be good and dry. Check out the other side and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, yep. Looks like that fancy new valve cover is doing a great job at that.